it. So the ultrasound, the margin of error is plus or minus 0.2 millimeter, while in optical it is plus or minus 0.02. However, also the ultrasound is measuring the axial length up to the IL limb, whereas in the optical it measures the axial length up to the RBE. So why we should know this point? Macular edema. Okay, in macular edema, the ultrasound will give you myopia or hyperopia. Myopia, because it's in front. And also the third difference is that the ultrasound is taking the average of this area. However, in the optical is narrower, so it will take like 1 point. And the newer devices of optical ultrasound, optical axial or optical biometry, it will show you the OCT of the fovea, just to make sure that it measures in the fovea, not eccentric measurement. So this is the example of macular edema. Okay, so the ultrasound, sometimes if you measure with the ultrasound, you'll have error, either myopic or hyperopic. Myopic if they measure the false short axial length. So false short axial length here, it will be in front of the retina, like if there is aggressive corneal indentation during the measurement, or dense cataract, or hypotony. Do you know why dense cataract will give you myopia? Faster, yes. So it will travel faster than the in soft cataract. So the hyperopia, in case of false long axial length, if there is light indentation, so indentation should not be aggressive or light. It should be in between. Soft cataract and silicone oil. Silicone oil, I put like a star on it because they have to adjust the speed of the ultrasound. If they adjust it, usually you will not have any issue. But if they measure it and they don't know that the patient has silicone in his eye, you will have hyperopia, +3, +4. Okay? So this is axial length measured by ultrasound, 23.03. For me, usually, if it is dense cataract, I will go for -0.3. If it is soft, I will go -0.6 or -0.5, depends. Okay, because the error of dense cataract is usually, if there is error, myope. So I will not go for high myopia. Okay, clear? Axial length measurement. Usually the average axial length between 22 and 26. You will have different sources, and some they will mention 26.5, 25, 22, 25.5. However, almost all the formulas are equal in accuracy if the axial length is in this range. But if it's short axial length, usually the error will be myopia. And in long axial length, usually the error is hyperopia. Okay? So usually the eyes with short axial length, usually the pre-existing refractive error is hyperopia. So after the surgery, you will change it to myopia. And vice versa. For the long axial length, usually preoperatively they are myope, but postoperatively they will become hyperop if there is error. So Wang and Koch, they studied 13,000 eyes, and they adjusted the axial length in high axial or long eyes. They adjusted based on different formulas. For Holiday 1, they optimized the axial length, and Hages, SRKT, Hofer, just to minimize this error. Actually, they are just reducing, by these formulas, they are reducing the axial length. So if you reduce the axial length, they will induce more myopia to overcome the hyperopia, the error. Okay. However, the new formulas like Olsen, Barrett can be used just to overcome this problem without adjusting the axial length. So if you have a short axial length, you can use Olsen and Barrett. Hofer Q now is ranked as number 4, okay, in such axial length. And long axial length, Hages ranked number 5. If you add also adjusting the Wang-Koch adjustment. But for me, I'm using Barrett for all of them. Olsen, you can use it only on Lens Star, or you can buy it on your computer. So I don't have Olsen, I'm using Barrett. But even with Hofer Q, you might get also good results in short axial length. Which is more difficult, to measure the IOL power in short or long axial length? Short is more difficult. Because any movement of the IOL, it will result in significant change in the refractive error. We finished with the axial length, the K readings. The K readings can be taken manually, autorefractometer, IOL master, or optical devices, lens star, others, or topographic or tomographic machines. So the K readings, the normal is between 42 and 46, and almost all formulas are equal in the accuracy of this range. However, in flat K readings, usually the error is hyperopia. And in steep K, the error can be hyperop or myope, depends on which formula you are using. So also here, in low Ks, the Barrett and Olsen, Hell RBF, Hages, SRKT, they are doing great job. And same for the steep K. Except if you have a patient with keratoconus, different story. So they are just, for steep K, they are measuring the IOL power with good accuracy up to certain limit. Then after this limit, the K readings, it will not become accurate. In part 2, I will mention why we have post-operative surprise in, post-operative refractive surprise in patients post-refractive surgery. So we will move to IOL constant. In IOL constant, we used to know that it is A constant, but it is not. In SRKT and PRDGS formula, which is a new formula, we used A constant. But in Holiday, we are using something called surgeon factor. Hages, we are using A0, A1, A2. Hofer Q, we are using the BACD and Olsen C constant, Barrett lens factor. So each IOL has different constant. A constant, surgeon factor, all of them, they are constant. But depends on which formula you are using, you will use such constant. Clear? So if you are using Holiday, you will not use A constant. You will use surgeon factor. Okay? In the constant, we have standard and optimized. Optimized means if you are collecting your data set of patients, and you want to optimize the constant, you want to know if the constant is compatible with your patients and your surgeries, so you have to do optimized constant. And we have ultrasound and optical. So if you are measuring the axial length by ultrasound, the A constant or surgeon factor is different than if you are measuring with optical. So you have to know the axial length was measured by IOL master or by ultrasound. Clear? So here, as you can see, this is IOL master. Let's say this is the name of the IOL. It is IQ. This is IQ lens. Yes. This is the name of the IOL. It is not the A constant you are using. But actually, this is the A constant you are using. I know it is the same, but if we come here, thickness is 119.3, but in the calculation, they are using 118.8. Okay, clear? Here we are using A constant because the formula is SRKT. If it is not SRKT, we will not use A constant. So here, what formula is this one? SF means surgeon factor. Holiday. So we are not using SRKT. Clear? And as we mentioned earlier, the K1 and K2, we are not using them. We are using this one in the calculation. But we are measuring K1 and K2 just to know the amount of cylinder. So here is 1.55, the surgeon factor. So to get you or to know or calculate the surgeon factor from your A constant, let's say you know the A constant of the IOL, but you don't know the surgeon factor. You have to use this formula. So the IQ or this IOL, optical constant. Why we said optical? Why it's not ultrasound? Because here the axial length is measured by optical. If it is measured by ultrasound, you will have like a star in here. After the millimeter, you will not have SNR. So if there is a star, means it is ultrasound, not optical. So here we will use the A constant of the IQ optical. So the A constant is 118.9. We want to change it or transform it to surgeon factor. So if we use it, the surgeon factor is 1.87, but here they used 1.55. You got my point? So here, if you want to use this A constant, which is the A constant for this lens, if you use the optical measurement, okay, the surgeon factor that you should use is this one. Okay, but they use different surgeon factor. So your calculation will not be accurate for sure. So 1.55 equals to A constant of 118.6, which is almost close to the ultrasound, not the optical A constant or IOL constant. Clear? إذا فهمتوا هذه بس في المحاضرة كلها تكفي. فهمتوا الغلط اللي صاير؟ طيب نعيدها. طيب الحين عندنا السيرجن فاكتور هذا، طيب اللي نستعمله للعدسة هذه، واضح؟ طيب احنا ما ندري هذا السيرجن فاكتور هو نفس الاي كونستنت اللي احنا نبغى نستعمله ولا لا، ما ندري. طيب فنبغى نحول الاي كونستنت اللي احنا نبغى نستعمله الى سيرجن فاكتور، فكيف نحوله؟ بهذه الفورمولا اللي هنا موجوده، اي كونستنت ضرب 0.5663 وبعدين تطرح منها الرقم هذا. فعشان نعرف احنا الحين نبغى نستعمل الكونستنت حق الاي كيو اللي هو 118.99، هذا هو الكونستنت حق الاوبتيكال اكزيال لينث الميجرمنت. يعني هنا احنا حسبناها بالاوبتيكال، ما حسبناها بالتراساوند. اجريد؟ طيب فالاي كونستنت للاوبتيكال از 118.99 يعني 119. فاذا احنا بنحول هذا ال 119 نشوف كم ايكوالز تو في السيرجن فاكتور، بيطلع 1.78 ما هو 1.55 because it is holiday. Yes المفروض. بس اذا انت ما تعرف تحول السيرجن فاكتور اللي من A كونستنت للسيرجن فاكتور ما راح تعرف ان في غلط اصلا. لا الجديد حاطين فيه اوتوماتيك بس ما حطوه. اي بس اللي هنا الا بس حاطين الترا ساوند ما هو اوبتيكال، فيحسبوا لك بديفرنت هذه. فلما تيجي هنا يعني اقرب شيء انك تستعمل، اذا انت بتستعمل اي كيو مثلا انك تستعمل حقه التكنس، هذه اقرب شيء حتى ما هي اكيوريت، بس هذه اقرب شيء، ولا انك تستعمل الاي كيو نفسها. طيب فهمتوا الفرق؟ فلو احنا بنستعمل 1.55 معناها ان استعملنا A constant of 118.6 ما استعملنا 119. كلير؟ repeat the calculation. لا repeat الكالكوليشن نفسها، يعني تاخذين السيرجن فاكتور حقك وتدخلينها انت مانيولي في الويب سايت، لان هذه كلها غلط تصير. طيب اسم. This is the name of the IOL in the machine. اي تقدر تكتب اللي تبغاه، بس اصلا هم دائما يحطون الاسم وجنبه الالترا ساوند كونستنت. يعني مثلا هنا this is holiday صح؟ اتفقنا انها holiday صح؟ بس حاطين لي هذا اسم ما له دخل. طيب بس الحقيقة هذه المشكلة في اللي هنا برضو، انك لما تجي حاط لك هنا الاسم وانت تتوقع انه يحسب هذا، بس في الحقيقة هو يحسب هذا بالالترا ساوند. فهمتوا الفكرة كيف؟ طيب عشان بس نختصر so in axial length we are divide the axial length into ultrasound and optical. However, if we will use A constant, if you measure the axial length by immersion biometry, you should use the IOL constant of the optical, not the ultrasound for immersion biometry, although it measured by ultrasound. And if you want to cut it short, just go to this website and you will find all the IOLs with their constant. So here Hages 0, 1, 2, Hofer, Q, BACD, Holiday, surgeon factor, SRKT, A constant. So IOL power and the position. So forward movement of IOL. The causes of forward movement of IOL is like if you implant the IOL in the sulcus or suture it to the iris or pupillary capture, AC IOL, or if you are doing phaco with ECP. Because phaco, what refractive error do you expect if you move the IOL forward? Myopia. So with phaco ECB, don't go for minus 0.7. Go for minus 0.3, 0.2. Because you know that they will have myopic shift. ما في study قارنة ترى. الاستدي على الفيكو والاي سي بي يمكن 3 or 4 studies بس. طيب بس كلها انها فيها مايوبيا، فيها مايوبيك شيفت. بس كم بت equals ما ادري. كيف؟ Yes. طيب the forward movement will induce myopia. So if you implanting the IOL in the sulcus, you have to reduce the power. طيب. How much you will reduce it will come to it. So if you are implanting a plus 20 in the AC, you have to reduce it to plus 16, okay, just to reach emetropia. Okay, the general rule, if you want to change the IOL power from the back to the sulcus, is to reduce the power by 0.5 to 1 diopter. However, so the sulcus will have less power. However, there is on the website of the American Academy of Ophthalmology, there is a recommendation. If the IOL is plus 18 or less, you have to reduce it by 0.5. If the IOL power between 18 and 25, you have to reduce it by at least 1. And if it is greater than 25, you have to reduce it by 1.5 to 2. For me, I'm using this website. This website, Dr. Hell, you will have a table for each power, how much you should reduce it, not a range. No, for each power, how much you should reduce in the if you will implant in the sulcus. So backward movement of the IOL, if you have weak zonules or zonulopathy, bag in the IOL, loosening of scleral fixated iris suture, or vitrectomized eye. So what refractive error do you expect if you have backward movement of the IOL? Hyperopia. Preoperative refraction. For me, I will not book any patient for cataract surgery unless I refract them, if we can refract them. Why? Because this patient, if you have a refraction minus 1, minus 6, and the K readings, this is the K readings from the cornea, the cylinder is 2.6, but the refraction is minus 6. So there is something wrong with the lens. So there is lenticular astigmatism. Maybe there is zonulopathy, maybe. Clear? Clear? طيب. If you have a patient with normal axial length, normal or average K readings, 44, so you expect that the patient will not become minus 16, for sure. So why he's minus 16? Yeah, maybe the position or the shape of the IOL. Maybe there is anterior dislocation of the lens, or okay, or microspheric, yes. You have to think in different way. You have to re-examine the patient and make sure that he doesn't, or the patient, there is no zonulopathy or lenticones or whatever. طيب. Also for sequential cataract surgery, if you have a patient minus 16 in both eyes and you will operate only one eye, he will have significant anisometropia and anisoconia. You have to counsel the patient about sequential cataract surgery. You will do one followed by the other, or to use contact lens. And also the same for high hyperopia. Clear? So for me, I will refract all patients before surgery. طيب. IOL formulas. We have something called effective lens position. Effective lens position is the axial position of the principal plane of the IOL inside the eye. It is not the physical position, it is the principal plane. So currently, it is the most common source of error in IOL calculation. Why? Because we have biometry that measures the axial length with high accuracy. But remember that in any error in axial length has highest effect on the IOL power. unlike the ELB. It is an estimation. We can measure everything for our IOL calculation except this one. It is an estimation. So the classification of IOL formulas can be classified based on the generation, but for me, I'm classifying them based on historical and refraction based, which is based on preoperative spherical equivalent, and no one should use it anymore. Also based on the regression or statistical or empirical, which is based on the data set of patients. So if you have a patient, study them and make your IOL formula, but also you should not use such formula. The vergence, the newer is the vergence or theoretical formula based on the optics and regression. So it is based on the optics, then applied on the patient, then modified based on the data set of their patient. Also artificial intelligence based on pattern recognition and regression or data set of patient. Ray tracing, same, based on the travel of the light, wave rays, and regression. And the newer are hybrid, which include the ray tracing, artificial intelligence, vergence, in addition to regression. So depends on everything. So the regression, which we should not use anymore, is SRK1 and SRK2. No one should use SRK1 or SRK2. The theoretical, we have two variables like holiday 1, SRKT, Hofer Q. Two variables means you need two things just to enter it in the IOL formula, and it will calculate you the estimated IOL power needed. The three variables like Haigis and super formula, the five variables like Barrett, universal, and 7 variables are holiday 2. I have to highlight here that even if you use 7 variables, it doesn't mean that it will be more accurate. Okay, there is a study comparing the holiday 2, 6 variables versus 7 variables. They included they exclude the refraction, and they found without refraction it's more accurate. So it is not necessarily that if you have more variables it means more accurate IOL calculation. The artificial intelligence like Hill RPF and Clear Neural Network, ray tracing, Oculix, and Olsen. The hybrid is the new formulas like Pearl DGS. DGS is just the first letter of the 3 guys that they invented this formula. Kane, EVO, and Benencia. Benencia, you can just download it in the just an application on the iPad or your laptop. So here's the variables for each formula. For SRKT and holiday, I excluded SRK1 and 2, okay? You need only the K readings and axial length, and for sure the IOL constant. For Hofer Q, the same. For Haigis, you have to know the AC depth, the optical AC depth, optical, not ultrasound. Barrett, it's 4, depends on the K readings, axial length, and optical ultrasound. The lens thickness and white to white are optional in Barrett. It will increase the accuracy, but they are optional. Olsen, the same. Bearl DGS, same in addition to CCT or central corneal thickness. Benencia, they include PA ratio, posterior anterior ratio, and sphericity. Holiday, they include 7 variables, including the refraction and the age of the patient. So the relationship between the IOL power and variables, we will use SRK1 just because it is simple, so we can understand the variables effect on the IOL power. But we should not use it to calculate the IOL power. So the SRK1, I think all of you are aware about SRK1. It is A constant minus 0.9 multiplied by the average K readings. Not K1, not K2. It's the average. Okay. So the A constant, if we increase the A constant of IOL, let's say we will use 119 instead of 118, we should increase it by same amount, 1 diopter. Clear? The average K, because of this minus, we have to, if we increase the K readings, we have to decrease the power. It is an inverse relationship. And the same for axial length. If we increase the axial length by 1 millimeter, we have to decrease it by 2.5 because it is multiplied by 2.5. Clear? This is holiday. Holiday 1. Holiday 1, as you can see, there is no A constant, and it's considered one of the simple new formula. So if you apply the same A constant average K axial length, it will not be accurate because you are not using the A constant. And if you change the K readings by one from let's say 43 to 44, and you reduce or decrease the IOL power, it will not match the holiday. It will not match. So if you recalculate it using the website, you will have different IOL powers. So you cannot adjust it based on SRK1. You have to repeat the calculation using holiday online formula. So the IOL power, this is just to know the relationship, the IOL constant and white to white. If you increase it, you have to increase the power, and the axial length, K reading, AC depth, lens thickness. If you decrease it, you have to increase the power. So one example and we will finish. طيب. عاد نبغى أحد بس يعطينا الإكزامبل بس. Interactive. طيب. This patient, do you think, let's say, this is the IOL power or this one. Do you think he's preoperatively myope or hyperope? Myope. Why? Yes, low. طيب. So let's say you want to approach this patient. من يبغى ياخذ الإكزامبل بس. البيشنت جاي for cataract surgery. يلا أحد. ترى عادي الكل يشارك، بس أبغى واحد بس يمسكها. لا أبغى واحد كذا يتبرع. يلا أحد يا شباب، ترى الموضوع بسيط. يلا تفضلي. أني First, you have to check the name of the patient, but I removed it here. بس إن then the formula. طيب تبغون نمشي عليها واحدة واحدة. خليني أقول لك. This is SRK formula. Target refraction is plano. Sometimes you can change it to -3, -5, depends. And what is N? كم الريفراكتيف اندكس حق ايش هذا؟ حق اللينس ولا الاي او ال ولا الكورنيا؟ كم الريفراكتيف اندكس حق الكورنيا؟ كلكم مقتنعين هذا؟ لا 137 لا. طبعا ما في اجريمنت. لو تروح تقرا الفورمولاز نفسها بتلقى ان كل فورمولا حاط لك، يعني بعض الفورمولاز ماشيين على هذا نفسه، بعضها ماشيين على اشياء ثانيه. ولكن لو البيشنت بوست ريفراكتيف يتغير هذا الكلام كليا. طيب والبوست ريفراكتيف بيصير في بارت 2 بعدين. طيب بس هذا الريفراكتيف اندكس اوف ذا كورنيا. وش فائده ان نعرف الريفراكتيف اندكس؟ ليه حاط لك الريفراكتيف اندكس؟ ايوه وش فيه البوستيريور كيرفتشر؟ تو استيميت البوستيريور كيرفتشر. هو كيف يحسب الحين الكي ريدينجز؟ الماشين يجي ياخذ لايك الايمج ويشوف الماجنيفيكيشن حق الايمج وياخذ الراديوس اوف كيرفتشر اوف ذيس ايمج ويحول الراديوس كيرفتشر لكي ريدينجز، يحولها بناء على هذا المعادله. احد منكم يعرف كيف يحول الراديوس اوف كيرفتشر لكي ريدينجز؟ تلقونها في البنتاكام دائما حاط لك كي ريدينجز وجنبها الراديوس اوف كيرفتشر. تقسم 337.5 على الراديوس اوف كيرفتشر يطلع لك الكي ريدينجز. طيب فهو عشان يحولها من راديوس اوف كيرفتشر لكي ريدينجز لازم يعلمك هو قسم على ايش، لانك ممكن انت ما انت مقتنع بهذا الريفراكتيف اندكس اوف ذا كورنيا. طيب الشيء الثاني اللي يستعمله فيه انه by this refractive index the machine will estimate the posterior corneal curvature. فلما انت تيجي تسوي refractive surgery انت you are changing the anterior غير البوستيريور ما تلمسه، فيتغير الريليشن بينهم. فعشان كذا الريفراكتيف اندكس يبدا يتغير عليك، فهو لازم يحط لك اياها عشان يعلمك هو بايش حسب. طيب لما نيجي للبنتاكام تاخذين الكي ريدينجز من البنتاكام يستعملون نفس الريفراكتيف اندكس. طيب بس لما تجين مثلا تقرين فورمولا معينه مثلا هيجس تلقين انه حاط الريفراكتيف اندكس السجستد حقه للفورمولا غير هذا. طيب هذا الحين خلصناها، وبعدين بنتجين على رايت اي وليفت اي صح؟ طيب هذه الاكزيال لينك. طيب ممتاز. طيب هذا محسوب بالاوبتيكال ولا الترا ساوند؟ لانه بيزد على your assumption is it optical or ultrasound you will change the IOL constant صح؟ لا على حسب هو ultrasound ولا optical. طيب فهذا ultrasound ولا optical؟ من اللي يقول ultrasound ومن اللي يقول optical؟ ultrasound optical. ليه optical؟ ما في ستار. طيب حلو. طيب وجنبها هذه اس النار، وش اس النار؟ اي ايوه بالضبط. طيب وبعدين وش استفيد اذا عرفت انها 177 والثانيه 65؟ وش الاكيوريت هنا اكثر عندنا، الليفت ولا الرايت؟ الرايت. اي the higher the more is the more accurate. طيب فهذه دقتها. طيب فلما تصير 300 400 انت عارف انها very accurate غالبا. طيب بعدين K1 و K2 وش تستفيدين منها؟ السلندر والانسجن مكانه. وين بتحطي الانسجن لنفرض لهذا البيشنت الرايت اي؟ اي if you can. طيب هذا هو الافريج كي ريدنجز اللي احنا بنستعملها. يعني لما تجين تحسبينها مثلا لنفرض انك قررتي تحسبينها باريت فورمولا وما راح تحطين توريك مثلا لهذا البيشنت، تروحين تدخلين الكي ريدنج كي 1 وكي 2 كلها 42.92 ولا تدخلين كي 1 وكي 2 عادي ما تفرق دخلتي هذه او هذه. طيب بعدين السلندر عندنا 3.32 تحطين توريك ولا ما تحطين توريك؟ دو بنتكام. بدون بنتكام ما تقدرين تعرفين. يعني بتستغربين ممكن irregular astigmatism، ممكن corneal scar، ممكن keratoconus، ممكن اشياء كثيره، فلازم تسوين بنتكام. فنو توريك without بنتكام. طيب وبعدين هذا الاي سي ديبث هذا من وين محسوب؟ من الابيثيليوم. طيب هذا مع الابيثيليوم، يعني بدون ابيثيليوم 2.3 تقريبا. طيب فانت تعرف على ايش انت داخل. واضح؟ وبعدين هذا الستاتس هل هي فيكك ولا بوست سيليكون ولا فيكه ولا كذا. طيب وبعدين نجي على الاي او ال. هذا اسم الاي او ال اتفقنا، وهذا اللي احنا بنقعد نحسب عليه، وهنا هذا اللي بنحسب عليه. طيب فالبيشنت الحين لنفرض عنده كاتاراكت في الرايت اي، الليفت اي، ولا اللي نفرض اللي تبغين، واحده منهم فيها كاتاراكت الثانيه ما فيها كاتاراكت. اي يلا ما في ستيل كلير لينس، بس الرايت اي جاه ار دي وجاه الحين كاتاراكت. طيب اكسلنت. فتبغين تسوي له ريفراكشن قبل العمليه. طيب بيقول لك الرايت اي ما في فيو، ما يقدرون يسوون الريفراكشن، فهل عادي انك تاخذين بس الريفراكشن للليفت اي؟ انت يو اوبريت الرايت، الليفت تبغين تسوي لها ريفراكشن ولا لا؟ لا اهم شيء عندك الليفت انت، ما هو الرايت. لا 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 الحين لنفرض ان عندك كاتاراكت في الرايت، انت لما ترسلين الريفراكشن انت تبغين شيء من الرايت وشيء من الليفت. الرايت عشان تعرفين اذا في زونيولوباثي هذه الاشياء، يعني تقريبا اذا في مايكروسفيروفيكيا هذه الاشياء، ولكن الليفت انت تحتاجينها ليه؟ يو ويل نوت اوبريت صح؟ بس ليه تحتاجينها؟ اي فانت تبغاها عشان كونسلنج البيشنت بري اوب. يعني ما تقدر تقول لي والله الاكزيال لينث حقه 28 و29 وتقولي ما راح يجيه انايزومتروبيا بعد العمليه، لا غالبا بيجيه. طيب خاصه اذا يعني الكورنيا يعني ما هي كومبنسيتنج. طيب فانت بتسوين ريفراكشن للبيشنت. طيب وش بعد بتسالين في الهيستوري؟ لازم تسالين هل هو مسوي ريفراكتيف سيرجري ولا لا. طيب لازم تسالين الكي ريدنجز خاصه في الليفت نظري 40. طيب دائما الان اسالي، لان بعض الاحيان يصيرون مسوين هايبروبيك اور مايوبيك وما بي ار كي ما تقدرين تشوفين شيء، فلازم تسالون عن الريفراكتيف سيرجري. طيب وبعدين بتختارين الاي او ال. طيب فنحدد هل بتسوين مثلا توريك ولا نون توريك. لا نقول ان بتستعملين مونوفوكل. حلو، تستعملين الرايت. فلنفرض ان اخترنا 8. طيب 8 وهذا الريفراكشن بوست اوب، يعني بعد ما خلصتي العمليه هذا الريفراكشن حقه، بعد شهر سويتي له ريفراكشن جاب هذا. فنبغى نعرف هل هي كانت اكيوريت ولا لا، لان اذا اكيوريت غالبا ان شاء الله الليفت بتصير برضو اكيوريت. طبعا وي هاف تو كونسل البيشنت، قلت لك فور سيكونشال. كيف نعرف انها كانت اكيوريت؟ اي لنفرض ان هذا، طيب بس عشان اسهلها عليكم لاني ما بغيت اعقدها اكثر من كذا، لنفرض الاي كونستنت هذا اللي استعملناه 118.99. اوكي، بس عشان اسهلها عليكم، لان لو ما حطيناها زي كذا لازم تعيدي الحسابات كلها من جديد. ولكن لنفرض ان الاي كونستنت هذا اللي هنا مستعمل، طيب 118.99 يعني هو الاكيوريت اي كونستنت ل this IQ IOL. كيف تحسبين spherical equivalent؟ طيب ايوه، فكم تطلع؟ اي فطلعت accurate. طيب لازم تعرفين ان اذا انت بتشيكين بعد العمليه you have to know this is the spherical equivalent post op not the sphere. طيب if you consider it or you think this is the sphere you will say oh I aimed for myopia but I got a hyperopia here. طيب clear. طيب before the surgery you have to inform the patient that about anisoconia. So the patient will wear contact lens in the left eye. طيب or you have to aim for myopia to avoid anisometropia, or to go for sequential or for refractive surgery after the cataract for the left eye. طيب if possible. clear. يعني لازم تاخذ كلمة من المريض، موافق هو على السيكونشال ولا لا. إذا موافق فيه باث بتمشين عليه، إذا ما هو موافق فيه باث واي بتمشين عليه ثاني. clear. طيب في أحد عنده سؤال؟ ترى خلصنا البارت 2 هو اللي عليه الكلام، التوريك والريفراكتيف. اي هذه اي هذا بوست اوبراتيف ريفراكشن. اي تاخذين سفيريكال ايكوفالنت. اي ليه؟ طيب هذه تتوقعين بيشوف كويس ولا لا بوست اوب؟ كم تتوقعين بيصير يشوف بالريفراكشن حقه هذا بدون كوركشن؟ كيف؟ ليه؟ سفيريكال ايكوفالنت انها كويسه، بس انه في شيء ثاني دائما عندهم، في انواع هي هم فيه مايوبيك يعني اي في الميكست استجماتيزم صح؟ الميكست غالبا انهم يشوفون كويس. هذا ميكست. كيف عرفتي انه ميكست؟ لا بدون ما تحولين، لان السلندر بالماينس والسفير بالبلس فديفرنت ساينز، والسلندر اعلى، فعلى طول بدون ما تحولين على طول تعرفين هذا ميكست استجماتيزم. بس ليه الميكست افضل يعني يشوفون كويس؟ because of the spherical equivalent، لأن واحدة ورا وواحدة قدام، فالسpherical equivalent قريبة من الريتنا. طيب فبس thank you، يعطيكم العافية. أي إذا ما في روتيشن ما راح يفرق، إذا ما في روتيشن. بس إذا في روتيشن يعني لازم تسوي دايليشن وتتأكد. بس غالبا إن أصلا التوريك بتاخذ أنت السpherical equivalent حقتها بوست أوب، يعني بتشوف السفيريكال ايكوفالنت حقتها كانت 0 معناها كانت اكيوريت الميجرمنت حقتك، حتى لو صار لها روتيشن بتظل السفيريكال ايكوفالنت نفسها ما راح تتغير. فهمت علي؟ طيب يعطيكم العافيه. هلا لا هو ما راح يصير مبسوط. انا لو كذا بسوي له توريك. طيب بس لازم تخلين في بالك انك لو بتسوين توريك، بشرحها في المحاضره اللي بعدها. التوريك الواحد هاي مايوبيا ممكن تلف، فممكن يزيد اصلا الهايبروبيا. اي 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 انا اسويها كذا قبل العمليه. اي انا عارف انها مشوار بس دائما اسوي كذا. المفروض اي طبعا انت تقدر تغير فيها وتخليها انه يحسب لك اياها على انها في السيرفيس، لان تشوف الريفراكشن. انت
7 دقائق والله. شوفوا اقول 7 دقائق كفو. كيف
تو باقي لهم بارت 2.
هلو حالك الله يسلمك الحمد لله.
يا اخي نورتني يا اخي اخبارك؟ والله
الأربعة والأنصاص هنا مشبوك صح؟ طيب سوي كذا. لازم يطلع طالع هنا. اي بيطلع. خله كذا اريح لي ترى. مرتاح كذا. سوي كذا. لا بتجي دكتور هدى. انا ترى استغربت مرة يتعوض السوق. انا استغربت ترى بنفسي. انا كنت شو اسوي؟ صراحه انا ما كنت تعوض نفس السوق. ايوه هذا اللي بس يعني ما يقول هذا هي بيقول ما يعلم قال لي حتى ما نعلم عشان ما صار، لانه هو يقول هذا زي 8 مو هو اي هو يقول يعني الدومينant حيتغير اذا قاعد على زي 8 صح يغير التصوير صح يغير لازم. لما تحسب فهو يتصدق خلاص هذه الاي باور حق 26 في الحقيقه. ايه هذا قصدي. انا اقول لك هو يعلمك اياها، هو ساينس الوحيدين اللي قالوه. الا لما تشوفه يقول لك شوف السفيريكال كوبلنت حق يطلع لك يقول لك انا ما راح احسبها. انا زيك انا في النهايه اكتشفت كذا بس انا خفيف على قلبي. بس انه يعني حطيت اكمل السفير وفي السفير هم ينزلون بعض الايرون تنزل كمل بس هذا هم ما يزيد بس الباور نفسها لما تجيك غير اصلا غير اللي يجيك العلم لا يقول بس ما نقدر نطبخها ولو علمناك توصل اي 200 سفيريكال كم تبغى تسفيريكال قلت اختار انت كم تبغى الباور تبغى تروح اي حطهم عليك والله صح صح مرة ترى حتى بعدين يقول لك يلا بحسب لك الحين بعدين يقول لك خلاص على اليمين يعني لا كم تبغى الريزلت بس ما يعلمك ما انت طلبت كذا بس هو غير لك كل شيء ما يعلمك ازاي حسب البرنت يعلمك نفس هذا يعلمك كم بالضبط ويقول لك كم الباور يجيبها هو ما يعلمك اياها
Hi, good afternoon. We're starting, guys. So, Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us in this grand round for this afternoon. I'm honored and pleased to present one of our top glaucoma fellows in KKESH, Dr. Uday Al-Awafir. And I used to, to pronounce his name starting with O, not with A, but he gave a permission to call him Uday or Adi. So wherever you like to call him, it's Dr. Al-Awafir. He's a second-year glaucoma fellow at KKESH, and he's a teaching assistant at the College of Medicine, King Faisal University at Al-Ahsa. Dr. Al-Awafir obtained his medical degree with honor from King Faisal University, Hafuf, Saudi Arabia in 2013, and he completed his residency training at the Riyadh Joint Residency Ophthalmology Program and was certified with the Saudi Board in Ophthalmology in 2017. And then after that, he joined the Glaucoma Fellowship here. Dr. Al-Awafir published 11 articles in peer-reviewed journals, and he presented many lectures, courses, and workshops in local and regional meetings. I'm so proud to present Dr. Al-Awafir here. He's one of the top glaucoma fellows, and he deserved to present in a grand round presentation. He's going to speak about cataract and glaucoma surgery, doing it simultaneous or sequential. Please join me to welcome Dr. Al-Awafir. Please, Doctor.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I'd like to thank Dr. Ahoud Aweda for this warm welcome. We at the Glaucoma Subspecialty Fellowship program are really lucky to have a division chief that's very supportive. And it was actually Dr. Aweda's idea that I present today's grand round, so I'd like to thank her for this opportunity. This lecture was originally prepared to be delivered to glaucoma specialists, but when I was asked to present it during grand rounds, I changed it a little bit, just to make it as relevant as possible to general ophthalmologists. So I hope you enjoy it. So the presentation is going to be divided into two main parts, just like the title implies. First, I'm going to be talking about simultaneous performance of glaucoma and cataract surgery. And then I'm going to move on to talk about sequential surgeries, doing cataract surgery first or doing glaucoma surgery first. So cataract and glaucoma, although they might seem simple to lay people, managing them both together at the same time can sometimes be challenging. Sometimes the cataract is significant and the glaucoma is uncontrolled. And sometimes the cataract is significant, but the glaucoma is under control. And sometimes the cataract is not significant, but the glaucoma is not controlled. And this has led to a variance of opinion amongst glaucoma specialists. This is the AGS survey from 2016 on the preferred approach to simultaneous management of cataract and glaucoma. Some people prefer to do phaco alone. Others do phaco with MIGS, and some prefer phaco with glaucoma drainage devices, and while some do phaco with TRAB. So in this presentation, we'll try to present the data that can help a surgeon in deciding what to do. So by the end of this presentation, we'll discuss the effect of simultaneous cataract extraction on the outcomes of glaucoma surgery and the other way around. And I'm going to underline or outline the considerations that should be taken into account when planning sequential surgeries. And at the end, the main objective is to improve our knowledge base with regards to concomitant management of cataract and glaucoma. So we'll start with the first part, which is simultaneous performance of cataract as well as glaucoma surgery. So first I'll be talking about the effect of simultaneous cataract extraction on the outcome of glaucoma surgery, and then I'm going to do it the other way around. So what does cataract do to the success of glaucoma surgery? Studies have shown that if you perform phaco with a trabeculectomy, this will decrease the survival of the filtering bleb. So this is a paper that came out in ACTA 2013, and they randomly assigned patients into two groups, either doing phaco with trabeculectomy or trabeculectomy alone. And after 12 months of follow-up, those patients that had phaco with trabeculectomy had about 20% less success rate at 12 months compared to trabeculectomy. So if you do phaco with a trabeculectomy, the chances that your bleb will survive are less. And one might ask, well, why? What's the reason behind that? There are different theories that might explain this, and one of them is an inflammatory theory. So people have shown that the amount of inflammation inside the anterior chamber after a phaco is by far more compared to a standalone trabeculectomy. And in this paper that was based on flare assessment, they compared two groups, trabeculectomy group and the phaco group. And you can see here the amount of flare in the anterior chamber 12 months after surgery in both groups. So the black dot represents trabeculectomy, so there's an increase up until 25 photons per millisecond, and then soon after surgery, about 1 month, it goes back to baseline and it continues. But in phaco, it goes up, but it continues to be high, and then it steadily declines, reaching baseline levels at a period between 6 to 12 months. So the take home is that if you do phaco, the amount of inflammation will persist inside the anterior chamber, and that's why the chances of survival of a trabeculectomy is less. The amount of inflammation is higher for two probable reasons, either the ultrasound during the phaco, or the other reason is that pseudophakia per se increases the amount of inflammatory markers within the anterior chamber. I'm going to show that in a coming slide. And what about deep sclerectomy? There's less evidence on doing a non-filtering procedure and on its effect on the success, whether combining it with phaco or not. And this is a retrospective study, so the quality of evidence from this graph is a bit less from the previous graph, but here they followed the patients for 24 months and they didn't find a difference in terms of IOP control between both groups up until 2 years. And Nitin Anand and the British Journal of Ophthalmology compared phaco DS versus phaco trab. Given the two slides that I showed earlier, you might think that, well, phaco trab has a lower chance of success, but their evidence suggests that both groups are similar. So in conclusion, there might be a lower success with phaco trab, but there's no evidence supporting lower success with phaco DS. But again, when we compare to both groups, they are probably comparable. So before moving on to talking about glaucoma drainage devices, I'd like to just demonstrate the surgical technique that I use in doing phaco with trabeculectomy. This is one of my oldest surgical videos. I was a resident at the university hospital with Professor Aysam Athman. That's why the quality is a bit low. So basically, we start with the trab part of the surgery. You do your periotomy, create your scleral flap, and then apply mitomycin. And this is why you don't start with the phaco to prevent any leakage of mitomycin inside the eye. And after you irrigate your mitomycin, you go in with a clear corneal incision and do your phaco. And this technique is called single port phaco trab. You can find in the literature other people doing a different technique, double port phaco trab. Some people do single port phaco trab. So from the flap that was created, they go in with the keratome and they insert the phaco probe from the trabeculectomy flap, do the phaco, and then create your stoma and iridectomy and come out. So that's single port. What I prefer to do is a double port. So the phaco entrance is different compared to the trab entrance. And after completing the phaco, you do your punch, iridectomy, and then finally you closing the conjunctiva. And at the end, the favorite moment for any glaucoma surgeon is at the end of a trabeculectomy is to test your bleb. You can see over here how the bleb nicely forms. This was 4 years ago, so I doubt that this bleb is still working. So what about tube surgery? There's limited data on doing phaco with or without tube surgery. The only paper in the literature was a prospective trial comparing phaco Burvelt versus Burvelt alone. And you can see there's a bit of about a 20% less success rate with phaco Barveld compared to Barveld alone. There's some inclusion bias in this study. The patients in this group were younger than this group, and age itself might play a role in success rate. So although it is evidence suggests that it might have a difference in terms of success when we compare phaco versus, tube versus phaco tube, but we still need more data to actually ascertain that finding. And this is a more recent video on combining phaco with tube. This was about a couple of weeks ago. This is an AMAD implant, not a Barveld. So basically you start with, again, the glaucoma surgery. You open the quadrant, prime your AMAD implant, make sure that the valve mechanism is working, and then you insert the plate into the desired quadrant, and then you fix the plate with a Prolene suture about 8 to 9 millimeters behind the limbus. And then you just tuck your tube within the subconch space in order to go to the phaco part. I edited out the phaco part. I don't want you to see how horrible of a phaco surgeon I am. So after you insert your lens, you go back to your tube and insert it. And the beauty of doing a simultaneous phaco with tube, especially in our population, a lot of patients have small eyes. You make more space for the tube insertion. And I actually prefer to put the tube in the sulcus rather than in the anterior chamber. As you can see here, I'm just confirming that the tube, if you can see, it's behind the iris, not in front of it. My theory is that this is safer on the cornea and the incidence of corneal edema is less, but there's no evidence to prove that sulcus tubes are less harmful to the cornea. So I'm done with the first part, which is the effect of doing phaco on the outcome of glaucoma surgery, and then the second part will be the effect of glaucoma surgery on the outcome of the phaco. Before I move on to the second part, I'd like to ask you how many meetings you attended last month. This is a bit of a joke on workplaces. People usually tend to meet a lot in order to get stuff done, and if you recall your past month, you probably had a lot of meetings. Ghazi al-Qusaybi, rahmatullah alayh, he once said that if you want a project to fail, just create a committee and assign that project to the committee. And Steve Jobs once said in one of the videos that in Apple they have 0 committees, so they don't meet at all. And me, myself, I don't like to attend meetings as well. And the only reason that makes me attend meeting is if there's food. So I'd like to add my part to that issue, is that any meeting without food should have been an email rather than a physical meeting. So now we're going to be talking about the other part, which is what effect the glaucoma surgery itself has on the cataract surgery itself. So there's no direct effect on the success of the glaucoma surgery itself. You wouldn't expect more PCR or more dropped lenses if you do simultaneous surgeries. But the only issue is with the refractive outcome itself. There's some evidence, and I'm going to show some figures and tables, that if you do ECP, the effective lens position might change, and you might have a more myopic shift if you do phaco with ECP more compared to if you do phaco alone. And with other standard glaucoma procedures, trabeculectomy or tube surgery, the chances of achieving the target refractive outcome are a bit less, and we're going to see the data when you compare it to doing phaco alone. So this paper is from Arsham Shibani and the Canadian Journal of Ophthalmology. What they did is they had patients that are undergoing phaco in one arm, and the other arm, this is group 0, and then the other group, which is patients that had phaco along with ECP, and this is the second arm. And here on the x-axis, you can see the patient's deviation from the expected spherical equivalent. So this is baseline or 0. So the further you are from 0, the higher the spherical equivalent. This is the phaco group, and this is the phaco ECP group. So you can note that the phaco ECP group are more shifted towards myopia compared to the phaco group. So there's a bit of a myopic shift with ECP. Some say if you do ECP anteriorly, the shift is less rather than targeting the ciliary body posteriorly close to the zonules, but that's just a hypothesis. And in that same manuscript, they've tried a lot of IOL calculation formulas just to make sure that, or just to see if one of those formulas are better in predicting the refractive outcome, and they were all similar in terms that in phaco alone phaco ECP there was more myopia compared to phaco alone. None of them was superior. And when looking at other glaucoma procedures, trabeculectomy or tube surgery, this is a paper that compared combined group, and when we say combined, we mean phaco with either tube or trap, versus cataract-only group. And those patients that achieved a spherical equivalent after surgery between -1 and +0.5 were 74% in the combined group and 85% in the cataract-only group, and there was a statistically significant difference. And the cylinder was a bit higher in the combined group, 1.3 compared to 0.9, but that difference wasn't statistically significant. So after looking at those two studies, people thought that, okay, let's not do both surgeries together. Let's do a trap first and then do a phaco later. And the question was, okay, if I deferred the phaco, will the refractive outcome be accurate or not? And this study was designed to answer that question. So they divided patients into 3 groups: phaco alone, combined phaco with trabeculectomy, phaco first, and then trabeculectomy afterwards. But it appears that when defining the success at one spherical equivalent plus or minus, the sequential group plus the phaco trabeculectomy group had the same refractive outcome. So there was no benefit of delaying the phaco. So it's 66% and 66%, and in the control group it was 84%. And the reason behind that is that actually trabeculectomy alters the ocular biometry, the sclera, the corneal curvature, and the axial length itself. So all the IOL calculation formulas are not that accurate, even if you do it afterwards. I had one of the anterior segment fellows, I think 1 month or 2 months ago, asked me if the bleb introduces with the rule astigmatism or against the rule astigmatism, and this answers the question. Here they looked at the effect of trabeculectomy on astigmatism, and they found out that actually the type of astigmatism introduced was with the rule, and the reason behind it is that the bleb itself compresses the vertical axis or the vertical meridian. Some other studies say that it starts with the rule, but then converts to against the rule as the bleb diffuses and the vicral sutures resolve. But it depends on a lot of factors: the location of the bleb, the patient's original refraction, and whether or not he had astigmatism in the same meridian or in the other meridian. And another important factor is the IOP after surgery, whether or not it reached low levels or not. So this study looked at the surgical-induced astigmatism after trabeculectomy, and they stratified the patients according to IOP. So those are patients that had IOP less than 10, and those are patients that had IOP above 10. And this is a vector display where this represents the degree, and this represents the amount of astigmatism. So you can see patients that have less IOP, they have a higher amount of astigmatism compared to patients that have IOP of more than 10. And I always say after trabeculectomy, there's an inverse relationship in the happiness of the surgeon and the patient. The lower the IOP, the surgeon is happy, but the patient is unhappy because of the astigmatism. The higher the IOP, the surgeon is upset, but the patient is happy. So whenever you have a patient that's visually upset after trabeculectomy, this means that his bleb is actually working. And as I mentioned earlier, the whole ocular biometry changes after trabeculectomy. This study clearly shows that the axial length actually reduces after trabeculectomy. So if you lower the pressure, the mean axial length changes from pre-op, 24 millimeters, down till 23.4 millimeters at 12 months. One might think that, well, if the axial length is less, patient should be hyperopic rather than myopic. And the answer to that is that the whole, as I mentioned earlier, the whole ocular biometry changes. So it does not only have to do with the axial length per se, but on other factors. So what about IOL selection? There's a lot of talk recently about toric, premium IOLs. Should those be implanted on glaucoma patients or not? So there's no clear consensus on that. If you're going to put a toric IOL, and first of all, you need to consider the considerations that you usually do if you're going to do a toric IOL, patient's visual demand. A lot of our glaucoma patients are actually, some of them are illiterate and they don't read and write, so you may not consider, or some of them have advanced glaucoma, so you may not consider a toric IOL. But if you are, it's better done on sequential rather than simultaneous surgeries. After the trap has stabilized, the corneal astigmatism is probably stable, and only then you can plan a toric IOL. What about multifocal IOLs? The issue with multifocal IOLs, as a lot of anterior segment surgeons know, is that they reduce the contrast sensitivity. And this has two problems in glaucoma, not one. First issue pertaining to the patient, they might be bothered a lot. So they're more sensitive to changes in contrast sensitivity compared to normal patient. And the other issue relates to the doctor himself or the glaucoma specialist. Multifocal IOLs, as I'm going to show in the upcoming few slides, may change the results of our structural and functional evaluation. So the visual field and the OCT may have artifacts because of the presence of the diffractive ability of the multifocal IOL. This paper from JAMA, they grouped the patients into three. And they are all normal patients, not glaucoma individuals. So phakic, patients with multifocal IOL, and then patients with monofocal IOL. And they did a visual field assessment in all three groups. And what they found out is that phakic controlled had no change in terms of visual field, so this is the change in mean deviation. Patients with multifocal IOL have lost -2 decibels of sensitivity, compared to monofocal IOLs, which did not lose. So bottom line is that if you put a multifocal IOL, you may lose 1 to 2 decibels of sensitivity on the visual field assessment, and that might be explained as progression from the perspective of evaluating glaucoma surgeons. A Japanese group in the JCRS journal looked at the effect of multifocal IOL on the OCT scan itself. So they found out that the diffractive ability of the multifocal IOL actually introduces some artifacts that might cause a problem in OCT evaluation of glaucoma patients. And this is actually particularly useful when you're thinking about multifocal IOLs, not just on glaucoma patients, but on patients with diabetic macular edema, AMD, or so forth. So any disease that makes you want to scan the posterior pole. They also tried another modality of imaging the optic nerves or scan. This is a view with the scanning laser polarimetry, and they found out that the artifacts were not present. Their explanation to this finding is that it's probably the difference in wavelength between the OCT and the polarimetry that might have caused the artifacts to appear here, but not here. So I know you're probably overwhelmed now by the amount of details on the refractive outcomes related to glaucoma surgery. And initially, when I started preparing for this lecture, I thought I'd easily understand all the details related to refractive outcomes after glaucoma surgery. So when I asked myself, can you summarize the refractive outcomes after glaucoma surgery, I said, yes, of course. But after digging into the literature, and only 3 articles later, so this is not a presentation that's geared towards talking about MIGS at all. And I wasn't planning to include this part of the presentation, but a lot of my colleagues from different specialties usually ask me about MIGS, and they find it interesting about all those small devices and new devices that we're using in glaucoma. So given that I'm talking about combining cataract and glaucoma surgery, I have to touch on MIGS. So I'm going to just go quickly through MIGS and show you some videos of some of the implants that we use. So when we say MIGS, what we refer to is minimally invasive glaucoma surgery, and it's a term that is used in the glaucoma community to describe interventions that are minimal invasive, but yet relatively safer than standard or traditional glaucoma surgery. And those procedures are often combined with cataract to provide additional IOP lowering and reduce or potentially eliminate the need of glaucoma medications. And most of minimal invasive glaucoma procedures are indicated in mild to moderate disease. And there's still a controversy on the position of MIGS and the borders of MIGS and where it stands within the glaucoma treatment paradigm. This figure summarizes most of the available MIGS worldwide, and they can be divided according to the mechanism of action. So we've got procedures that are targeting the aqueous production, such as ECP, micropulse laser, and HIFU, which is UCP, ultrasound cycloplasty. And then we've got procedures targeting the trabecular outflow, such as the eye stent, the trabectome. And then we've got procedures targeting the subconjunctival filtration, such as the Zen and the Infocus. And then we've got procedures targeting the suprachoroidal space, such as the CyPass and the iStent Supra. I'm just going to quickly go through some of the MIGs that I've had the opportunity to try here at KKESH. So the first MIGs that I'm going to show is canaloplasty ab interno. Basically, you are cannulating Schlemm's canal and injecting viscoelastic within it to enhance outflow through the trabecular meshwork. This is a case that I did with Dr. Naif Al-Ataibi, I think 1 year back. So basically, again, I skipped the phaco part out. After removing the cataract, inserting the IOL, you inject viscoelastic to form the anterior chamber, some OVD on the cornea because you're going to place the lens. A side port is created to insert the catheter, and the entry of the port is directed towards the nasal angle. You first visualize the anatomy, make sure that the angle is open. This patient, as with most of our patients, has a deeply pigmented meshwork. This is the catheter, and we're just testing that it can inject the viscoelastic. We're creating a small opening to access Schlemm's canal with a 27 gauge needle, and you can see the opening. Then from the inside with the microforceps, you insert the catheter itself, then you advance it through the circumference of Schlemm's canal 360 degrees, and then afterwards you retract it with simultaneous injection of viscoelastic. And one of the intraoperative signs that you are actually within the canal, you can see the collector channels blanching. So this is a sign that helps you to know that you're in the right place. So we reviewed the data in a group that was headed by Dr. Mahoud Aweda. We reviewed some of the cases that we did. I think we did 25 cases, and we followed them for 12 months, and we found a 5 millimeter mercury drop from pre-op up until 12 months. And this is very important for patients. They usually are looking for getting off medication. So 7 out of, sorry, it was 14, not 25 patients. 7 out of 14 patients had complete success, which means they are totally off medications, and 7 required additional medications to control their IOP. Another procedure that you've heard a lot about, and some of you have probably seen it in OR recently, is the eye stent. And the eye stent is basically a small stent that's placed within the trabecular meshwork to bypass the resistance in patients with open-angle glaucoma. So there's an injector that injects the stent, and you can nicely see it over here. The newer version of this stent has 2 stents in the within the same injector, so you can target 2 sides. And we've yet tried a couple of cases. Dr. Conrad has some experience with, I think, 25 cases that he did. So maybe we'll have the opportunity to listen to the results in one of the upcoming grand rounds. The other MIGS procedure, and this is the last one that I'm going to be talking about, is the Cahook dual blade. And the issue with glaucoma, or maybe open-angle glaucoma, is that there's a resistance over here at the level of the trabecular meshwork. So the idea behind the Cahook is that it is a blade that tears off the inner wall of Schlemm's canal, or the trabecular meshwork, to facilitate outflow. And here there's no device implanted, you're just tearing it off. This is my first Cahook that I did, so excuse me for an image that's not clear. So you go perpendicular against the trabecular meshwork, and you tear the trabecular meshwork. You can see over here that there's a strip that you have removed, and through that strip the resistance will be hopefully eliminated. The last MIGS, which is a procedure that actually has been performed over here for years, but it is regarded as a minimally invasive procedure, which is ECP. And the beauty of ECP, especially in our population, we have a lot of patients with small eyes, angle closure. You cannot do an angle-based procedure, so you're only left with procedures that are targeting other pathways. So ECP is the way to go. And the problem with ECP is that you see it through the endoscope camera, and the quality is not that high, but I tried my best to record it. So basically, you are directing laser at the ciliary processes one after another. You can see the blanching effect that tells you that you are in the right place and within focus. And you can see that the ciliary processes in these patients are actually whitish. Normally they aren't like that, but this is a patient that has exfoliation, and that's why this is the appearance of ECP. Although ECP is done over here a lot in patients, especially with angle closure, but a lot of people are skeptical about ECP in that it's usually combined with phaco, and actually phaco is doing all the work and reducing the pressure, especially because the angle is narrow from the lens, and it's not the ECP. So in order to answer that question, we're currently in the division, we're lucky to be working on a clinical trial that compares phaco ECP versus phaco alone. So those are patients with primary angle closure at presentation, and you're taking them to the OR to remove the cataracts. And we're going to try two arms, first time to do phaco alone and the other arm to do phaco ECP. This is still in IRB. Hopefully we'll get the approval next month and we'll be start recruiting. And hopefully after a year or two, one of the investigators will stand in the podium here to tell you about the results. So this was a short note about MIGS, and as you know, there's a lot of controversy that sometimes confuses the glaucoma surgeon when deciding whether to proceed with MIGS or not. So there's an issue with safety. Although MIGS are relatively safer than traditional glaucoma surgery, there's no surgical intervention without a risk, and you can find reports in the literature with complications, hyphema, or sometimes even devastating complications after some of the MIGS procedures. There are reports of endophthalmitis after XEN, so they're not totally safe. The other issue is cost, and whenever thinking about cost, because those implants cost money, and the cost of the implants differs from one country to another. So whenever you're analyzing the cost, it's not applicable to see whatever was done in the Western world or in States or Europe and then apply it over here. Over here, the comparative cost of the implant versus other modes of care may differ. So this is dependent on the geographic location. Efficacy, the eye stent is probably supported by a lot of trials that support its evidence, its efficacy on the long run, but the other newer modalities of treatment are still awaiting long-term follow-up. Some people are still skeptical that the long-term outcome of MIGS is not as you wish it would be. The last thing is quality of life, and that's the thing that we're constantly talking about in glaucoma, that getting the patient free from medications will enhance their quality of life, and this is one of the things that people usually talk about when they're considering MIGS. What I found interesting in our patient is that not all, but there's a small portion of our patients that are actually more comfortable using their drops, especially old ladies that do not move around. I remember a lady that we did a MIGS on her, and she was fine, medication-free, and we told her that you don't need any medications for your glaucoma, and she wasn't comfortable with that idea. She said, no, I need to use drops. So just prescribe whatever drop I was using. So the point is that quality of life differs according to the geographic location and according to the type of patients. So keeping all those four factors into considerations, people are split when talking about glaucoma. Some people are strongly with MIGS, and some people are strongly against MIGS, and some people are somewhere in between. And actually, it had to take even President Trump to tweet about MIGS, and he wanted to state his own opinion. So he's saying MIGS is a hoax. Don't believe the fake news. It's just the companies trying to make billions and billions of dollars, and nothing beats a filtering blood. Hashtag make trabeculectomy great again. So this is all the first part of the presentation, and I just want to summarize whatever I've said so far. So basically, combining trabeculectomy with phaco possibly reduces the surgical success rate. There's limited data on combining phaco with glaucoma drainage implants. In a minority of patients with glaucoma, undergoing simultaneous cataract extraction might introduce a myopic shift. Toric and premium IOLs should be used in caution in patients with glaucoma. And finally, MIGS are a good adjunct to cataract extraction that can provide further IOP lowering. So this is the summary of the first part. The second part will be about sequential surgery, so doing one surgery, then doing the other. But before going on to the other part, I'd like to take a break. I'm sure you're fed up with whatever I've been saying so far. So let's have a look at a video. For those of you that know me, I'm from Al-Hassa. Al-Hassa is a region that's situated on the eastern coast, and to me it's the most beautiful area of the kingdom. And recently Al-Hassa won the 2019 Arab Tourism Award. So this is the promotional video that shows some of the beautiful landscapes in Al-Hassa. And the title of the video is Al-Nakhil, which means Al-Hassa, the mother of all palm trees, because we are known of palm trees. So while I take some rest and drink some water, have a look at this video. So hope you are all interested in visiting Al-Hassa after seeing this video. And whomever is interested, just give me a call. So second part is sequential surgery. We'll be talking about performing one procedure and then the other. So first, let's talk about doing cataract first and then delaying the glaucoma procedure. It's well known that phaco itself reduces the IOP. So, and the famous saying is that phaco is actually the most commonly performed glaucoma surgery. The IOP lowering effect that's observed after phaco is more prominent whenever you have patients with angle closure, and it's less prominent in patients with open angle. And there are a lot of mechanisms that might explain the IOP lowering effect of phaco, whether it's ultrasound induced, whether it's widening of the angle, or increased uveoscleral outflow. And this is one of the fluorescence studies that shows increased expression of one of the adhesion molecules after phaco, and this in turn is thought to increase the outflow through the trabecular meshwork. And in another structural anti-segment based study, they clearly documented that the angle is widened after phaco. This is in an angle closure patient. You can see that the angle is narrow, and then post-op you can see how wide it became. And then in an open angle glaucoma patient, the angle also widened. So these are two of the proven mechanisms that might lower the IOP after phaco. And people have taken phaco or the IOP lowering effect of phaco to an extent to comparing it against trabeculectomy. This is a paper in ophthalmology that was published by a group in Hong Kong where angle closure has a very high prevalence. So they had patients with uncontrolled angle closure glaucoma with clear lenses, and they randomized them into two groups. First group underwent phaco, and the other group underwent trabeculectomy, and they found out that the IOP level is comparable between two groups at 24 months of follow-up. And you've probably heard about the EAGLE trial, which is one of the landmark clinical trials that came out in glaucoma recently. And the concept behind the EAGLE trial is that if you have a patient with angle closure at presentation, even if the lens doesn't have any cataract, do a phaco instead of a peripheral iridotomy. So the standard of care, if you have a patient with angle closure, is to do a peripheral iridotomy. So what they wanted to compare is phaco versus doing laser. The lens is clear, and the patients are above 50, and they chose above 50 to eliminate the issue of accommodation. They've already lost accommodation. And they compared patients in terms of IOP control, quality of life, and cost of care. And the conclusion is that compared to laser, or laser iridotomy, patients that were randomized to phaco had lower intraocular pressure by, I think, 2 millimeters of mercury. Quality of life, according to the scale they used, was better. And then the cumulative cost of care in the institutions where that study was performed was less. So the other issue to think about is, okay, I've done phaco, but if the patient needs glaucoma surgery in the future, will the chances of success be the same or not? So asking that question in a different fashion is saying, what's the outcome of doing a trabeculectomy in a patient that's pseudophakic compared to phakic patient? Because studies have shown that there are many alterations that happen to the structure as well as the biochemistry of the eye that might affect the outcome of future glaucoma surgery. And the trabeculectomy versus tube study, which is one of the landmark trials in glaucoma, found out that the success is less whenever the patient is pseudophakic compared to phakic patients. And the reason behind that is that, as I mentioned earlier, the inflammatory mediators within the anterior chamber in a patient that's pseudophakic is higher compared to a phakic patient. And this study looked at two pro-inflammatory cytokines, interleukin-8, and then the chemotactic protein 1, and compared the levels of those two mediators in phakic patients and in pseudophakic patients. And you can see that the amount of mediators in the pseudophakic group is higher compared to the phakic group. And this is one of the reasons that might contribute to the lower success rate of TRAB in pseudophakic eyes. This trial in JAMA randomized patients to two groups of patients, whether phakic and pseudophakic. Both groups underwent trabeculectomy, and they wanted to find out whether the success rate was different in phakic versus pseudophakic patients. And they used different criteria for success, and this is the Kaplan-Meier. You can see for criterions A and B, which is pressure more than 21 and more than 18, there was a statistically significant difference between both groups. But at a more strict criterion, the difference was not statistically significant. So now we're done talking about starting cataract surgery first, and then I'll move on and talk about starting glaucoma surgery first. And before I move on, I'd like to ask you what you think this is. This is not a sick person lying on bed with doctors listening to it. This is a paper sent for a journal, and those are all the reviewers. And the editor is over there waiting for the verdict. Okay, so what if we do cataract? What if we do glaucoma surgery first, and then delay the cataract? The issue is that glaucoma surgery itself accelerates cataract formation. It's a cataractogenic procedure, and there are a lot of mechanisms that can explain that. Whether it's the steroids that we use, whether it's the alteration in the or the limited amount of aqueous that goes to the lens instead of going to the bleb itself, shallowing of the AC, direct mechanical injury, or a direct effect from mitomycin. And there are some factors that can tell you that those patients are more prone to develop cataract after trabeculectomy. And those factors are whether there are some changes at baseline, if you used mitomycin, if the patient is old and has diabetes and hypertension, and also in pseudoexfoliation patients. This figure is from the SIGITS study, which is an old landmark trial in glaucoma, in which they randomized patients to receiving medical versus surgical therapy. So black line are patients that were treated medically, and then red line are patients that were treated with trabeculectomy. And they found out that the patient that did surgery had a higher chance of developing cataract compared to the patients that were monitored on medications. In this table, I summarized the incidence of cataract after different glaucoma procedure from different landmark glaucoma trials, trabeculectomy, deep sclerectomy, and tube surgery. And you can see that the range is anywhere from 19-17% up until 65%. The other issue to consider is what does the phaco have? What is the effect of phaco on the success of the glaucoma surgery that's already present? So if you have a patient with already performed trabeculectomy, he has a bleb, and you did phaco in that eye, there is a chance that the bleb itself, although it was functioning nicely previously, that it will start to fail. So performing phaco in a patient with a prior trab might affect bleb morphology and function, and the longer the period between the trab and the subsequent phaco, the better for the patient it is. When looking at tube surgery, there's limited data on the effect of phaco on patients with pre-existing tube surgery, but it seems that glaucoma drainage devices are more resilient to phaco compared to trabeculectomy. And this is an ISOCT study of a patient that already has a bleb, and he underwent phaco. So this is the photo before the phaco, and this is the photo after the phaco. So the blue reflects the amount of fluid within the bleb, and the green, yellow, and red is the bleb wall. As you can note that after phaco emulsification, the thickness of the bleb wall is higher compared to before phaco. So this will eventually translate into higher intraocular pressure levels. And this clinical study shows that after doing phaco, you can see that the success of a trab drops down anywhere between 6 months up until 1 year after doing the phaco. So those two groups, the trab group, those two groups had trab at baseline. One group remained without intervention, and the other group had trab phaco. So the group that had trab phaco had lower success. And as I mentioned earlier, the main factor is the timing between the trab and the subsequent phaco. This study has calculated the hazard ratio, and they found out that if you do the phaco 6 months after trab, the ratio is 3. If you do it 1 year after trab, which is the figure over here, it's 1.7. If you do it 2 years after trab, the ratio is 1.2. So the conclusion is that try to delay it as much as you can, the phaco after the trabeculectomy. If possible, delay it up until 2 years, but after 1 year, the chances of success are comparable. And as I mentioned earlier, tubes are more resilient. This is one of the few reports in the literature looking at the effect of phaco in patients with prior Ahmed implants. And you can see that the intraocular pressure level remained similar, 15 millimeters baseline, and the last follow-up 15 millimeters, although there was some escalation in the number of glaucoma medications that those patients do both procedures at the same time rather than doing one and then waiting for the other. And this is a study that was published in 2017 in glaucoma that says after calculating the cost economically in different countries, the States, China, and Hong Kong, is that doing phaco combined with trabeculectomy is a more cost-effective option compared with doing one procedure and then the other. So this is a very important aspect to keep in mind as well. So let's summarize what we've said so far on sequential surgeries. So performing cataract extraction in glaucoma patients may offer some IOP lowering. However, if you need glaucoma surgery in the future, pseudophakia may lower the chances of success, especially if you're considering a trabeculectomy. And standalone glaucoma surgery in phakic patients leads to progression of cataract, And keep this thing in mind whenever the patient is old, diabetic, hypertensive, has some lens changes at baseline or is pseudoexfoliation. And phaco in patients with prior glaucoma surgery may escalate therapy, particularly in TRABs. Tubes are probably more resilient. So I'll just conclude with a couple of slides. We still have 7 minutes. Before I do, a lot of patients Google things online and come to you with some information that's not always accurate. And doctors always say, please don't confuse your Google search with my medical degree. I guess this applies to the older generation, but it doesn't apply to our generation because we also Google medical stuff online. So what we should say to the patient is, don't confuse your Google search with my up-to-date search. So I'll just summarize what I've said. So cataract and glaucoma are two roads that eventually merge into one. And whenever you're putting a management plan, you should keep both into consideration. Simultaneous surgery could be a more cost-effective option, but it may jeopardize the success of traditional surgery, and it has a higher chance of post-op surprise. MIGS is probably a better alternative than traditional surgery when considering simultaneous surgery. And about sequential surgery, pseudophakia, which is cataract extraction first, lowers the success rate of future traditional glaucoma surgery. And on the other hand, glaucoma surgery first in phakic patients can lead to progression, especially in patients with high-risk features. Nonetheless, sequential surgeries depend on the urgency of either conditions, and it may offer a more predictive outcome. There are some areas that still need more evidence, so we need more research to improve our knowledge base with that regard. I'd like to summarize with an algorithm that I use to manage glaucoma patients that simultaneously have glaucoma and cataract, and I've divided it into patients with open angle and patients with closed angle because it differs a bit. So if a patient has an open angle and the lens is clear, I would consider a filtering procedure. If the patient has cataract, if it's visually significant, and the IOP is close to target, I would consider a phaco MIGS, but if IOP is too high, I'll probably consider combining phaco with a filtering procedure. If there are early lens changes, some patients would be interested in phaco, so I would do that combined with the glaucoma surgery. If the patient is not interested, a standalone glaucoma procedure can be done, especially if the patient doesn't have risk factors of cataract progression. If the patient is pseudophakic, I would still do a TRAB, although the success is a bit less, if the patient doesn't have any other risk factors for TRAB failure. If the patient has risk factors of TRAB failure, I would choose an implant. If the patient has angle closure, management is a bit different. If he's less than 50, and here I'm talking about angle closure, needing surgery, so pressure is high. So below 50, still hasn't lost accommodation, just filtering procedure. If above 50 or has lens changes, I would consider phaco no matter what the IOP is. So if the IOP is controlled, I would cancel the patient that the phaco would actually benefit his glaucoma, especially if the vision is 20/30, 20/40, not perfect. If it's close to target, I would combine phaco with MIGS, whether an ECP or sometimes if the angle opens up after phaco, you can do a cahook. And if the IOP is way above target, I would probably think about phaco with TRAB. And again, same thing with open angle if the patient is pseudophakic. If there are multiple risk factors for failure, a glaucoma drainage device, if pseudophakia is the only risk factor, a filtering procedure would be a reasonable option. I should have removed the assets just to try. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ade, for this excellent presentation. I think I'm going to extend your fellowship for another 2 years with us. So any questions from the audiences? Yeah, Sarah, please.
Thank you, Doctor, for the great presentation, as always. I have a question regarding the effect of cataract surgery on lowering IOP in open-angle glaucoma. Is there?
Yes, there's a systematic review published by the American Academy that compared the effect of phaco on open angle and on angle closure. And the conclusion is that the amount of IOP lowering after phaco in patients with open angle is mild. It's about 1 to up until 3 millimeters of mercury.
Would you still consider it to decrease the
not
drops
to
maybe?
decrease the IOP, of course not. But in open angle, you would consider a phaco with a mix, an eye stent or something else. You won't.
You will not do it alone?
And yeah, in most instances, no.
Thank you very much, Dr. Idey, for this very nice and informative lecture, and also including the video about Al-Ahsa, which we all like it very much. And really, there are some concern regarding to do phaco or combined with the trap or whatever. Actually, here in our hospital, you know the appointment system, you know all the things. So I really recommend to have surgery done combined, regardless of the maybe failure or. And this is which we noticed all over the years. The failure rate might be a concern, even including using mitomycin, whatever. So at least not to lose our patient and to with the system and these things and the compliance rate with medication. So what I noticed, patients always keep delaying and send to anterior segment, do phaco, then go back to glaucoma. So it's really a real concern. So I would go straight ahead and do the combined surgery to at least save the patient vision and optic nerve and all these things, and not to just lead patient to advanced glaucoma with loss of optic disc. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comment, Dr. Saeed, and we'll await your visit to Al-Hassa, inshallah.
Inshallah.
I totally agree with what you said, and some types of patients that come here to KKESH come from very far away, and they actually tell you, I'm not going to come back. They say, خلاص اسحب لي المويه البيضاء اسحب لي المويه الزرقاء ولا نبي شايفك مرة ثانية. So in those patients, it's sensible to do both surgeries, as you mentioned, at the same time, not to get lost in the system.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mutawar, for raising this valid point. Actually, after the excellent presentation by Uday, we can have a conclusion that each case should be dealt with separately and individually. Like, beside our KKESH system and beside the type of the patient, the culture, and the follow-up and all the other policies, I think we need to take each patient individually and see whether we need to start as a standalone procedure or to make it a combined procedure. Any further questions from the audiences? Dr. Leila?
One eye angle closure glaucoma and the other eye, usually they come on acute attack in one eye. So preferably, even if he's young still, because he'll have accommodation in the other eye, so he can be monoocular. You can do phaco, you can do syneculisis. It's easier to take care of than trabeculectomy with its complication and the blebitis and leaking. I think if the only eye, yes, you can consider to preserve the accommodation. But if it's the other eye is normal, why to go for trap? What do you think?
I totally agree. These are not always fit. Most patients you see actually, but they help you.
All the algorithms that are present in all textbooks don't fit within for all patients that you see in the clinic, but just help you guide your thinking. So if I have a scenario that's similar to what you said, I wouldn't choose trap, of course, yes.
And remember again, Dr. Leila, that eagle study is not, fully accepted yet here in our culture, at least by most of the physicians. So it depends on how powerful and strong and you can advise the patient and convince him to go for cataract if his lens is totally clear. Yeah. So I think we should conclude here because we're running short of time. There is another presentation afterward. So I would like to thank you all again. Thanks, Dr. Uday, and he owes us all a free invitation to Ahsa. And the last take-home message is no meetings without food, please. Thank you. Thank you, Uday.
You didn't tell me. Didn't tell me.
She wanted that I comment. Excellent.
You should go again.
Yes. Yes, doctor. Want to use your lab? If you don't mind. Yeah, please. Oh my God. This is a lot, doctor. And then we have...
Yeah,
we have the
and we have the other one too. If you want to use the...
doctor,
yes?
this one for the HD.
And what about
And this
the
one
small for the small?
monitor.
Yes. It will work very good.
You do something small.
Thank you. It is. Eh? Yeah, I think so. Good afternoon. This is what we have next, right? And here we have the Air 1 and the Air 4, right? All of it. Well, I hope it's not going to be very easy for the Air 4, and I hope it's not going to be very hard for the Air 1. And for the Air 2 and 3, this is what we have. So I'm going to present to you 5 cases, right? 2 questions per case, isn't it? You're going to write that, and I have to make an evaluation out of that, right? Sounds easy. Case number 1. How much time do we have for this? As much as I want. No, as much as you need. Well, this is the first case. 53 years old, emetropic Saudi male, patient present with slowly decrease of vision in both eyes. No family history of glaucoma. He refers a minor ocular trauma 30 years ago in the left eye. He was not taking any medication. This is the physical examination. I see a lot of smiles, so you all know the case. Pressure 16, 21, vision in both eyes 20/25.
corneal thickness. There was no afferent pupillary defect, and his anterior examination was unremarkable. These are the optic nerve. Take a time, breathe. This is the OCT. If you had any question, this is what we have. These are the tools. Visual field. Corneoscopic view. Clear? And these are the two questions I want you to ask. Remember, clear answers and in English. Thank you. Okay. Case number 2. 62 years old, emetropic Saudi male. It's not the same, eh? Patient present at ER with sudden decrease of vision in left eye, no family history of glaucoma, and it never attend for an ophthalmological evaluation. He mentioned always the vision is good. He's in high blood pressure medication for a long time, and this is the physical examination. 20/20 in right eye, best corrected visual acuity, and 20/50 in the left. Pressures, corneal thickness, you can see everything? Okay. These are the two questions I want you to ask. What is the physiopathology of the CRVO in this case? And what is the explanation of the white areas in the OCT? Okay? Clear the questions are clear, isn't it? How far? Case 1?
No. Same case.
This is the... Okay. This is the physical examination. First test. This is come from retina, so the quality is not as good as our OCT. You know that. Nerve fiber layer OCT and physiopathology of the CRVO in this particular case is the question number 1. And what is the explanation of the white areas in the OCT? Case number 3. "36-year-old Saudi male patient present at ER with high IOP, 24 in the right eye, 25 in the left. Prescribed fixed combination of timolol plus dorzolamide and appointment in glaucoma 4 weeks later. No family history of glaucoma, corneal graft for stromal granular dystrophy, on prednisolone drops twice a day, regular for long time." This is the physical examination. Best corrected visual acuity 20/30 and 20/50 that improved with pinhole to 20/40. Pressure with Goldman applanation tonometer 15 on right eye, 16 left. Open angle, 4 component in the 4 quadrants, no synechias. These are the anterior segment pictures. These are the OCTs. And what is the diagnosis? First question. And what is the explanation for what the red cross is marking? You see it here. Yep, the left. Right eye has the, I'm going to go back, you can see it. Left has the graft, the right has, the pathology is not transplanted yet. Okay. Case 4. "26-year-old female patient came for a regular check. Family history of refractive problems, glasses since youth. She is on fixed combination of brinzolamide plus brimonidine, Simbrinza, commercially named, and fixed combination of travoprost and timolol. This is on examination, best corrected visual acuity, 20/40, refraction, and Goldman applanation tonometry. This is the anterior chamber. Optic nerve. macular OCT. Oops, I passed this one, sorry. Anterior segment. And two simple questions. What is it? Well, here, she is faking. As you can see there. Eh? Yes? You could define that as a full topical treatment for meds, even if the patient is using 2 bottles. Okay, last case. 71 years old Saudi female patient, no family history of glaucoma. The Saudi package, diabetes and high blood pressure, on timolol and brimonidine, Conbigan, but plus bimatoprost. These are the physical examination. Best corrected visual acuity 2050 and 2025. 21 and 16. On slit lamp examination, moderate cataract and left eye pseudophakic. Gonioscopy is an open angle. 4 components can be seen in each quadrant. No anterior synechia, heavily pigmented. San Paolesi line. Just in case that you are not able to see it on the picture. The quality is very good, but just in case, remember what is on the picture. The optic nerve. OCT. Visual field. And also 2 simple questions. What? go back and review everything if you want. This one. Pardon? Medication. Eh? The OCT, yes. Yes. The second case, you mean? Of course. This one? Halas. Someone will collect the papers then? All the papers are in here? No one else? Thank you. Thank you. All right. No more papers? Halas? So let's explain a little bit, and we can, before the case presentation, we're going to talk about this. The first case. Yes? You will need a microphone, right? Pull it out. Good.
Okay. So the scenario goes with the angle recession glaucoma in the right eye and the left eye, I believe. Yeah, the left eye. The second question was the management. So I will start him on topical anti-glaucoma. Preferably, I would give prostaglandin analogs that works on the uveous clear pathway. Also, I would give other aqueous suppressants. Also, I would avoid myotics in this case. If topical anti-glaucoma is not did not succeed, then I would go for surgical intervention.
And between the surgeries, which one will be your choice?
TRAP.
TRAP. Okay. How you arrive to the conclusion that it's angle recession glaucoma?
So starting from the history of trauma 30 years ago, and then from the clinical exam, IOP is a bit higher, is a bit like on the higher side in the left eye, but mostly is the absence of other causes of secondary open-angle glaucoma, and the gonioscopy finding in this patient is suggestive of angle recession.
Good. And this is one step further. Which stage will you say that is this glaucoma? Early, mild, or advanced?
Looks like early, but at which
you can tell me.
stage
I don't
is
have
it?
enough information for because I need the visual field. That's right. That's why I didn't ask about the stage. Excellent approach. Two things that is important that you can take home as a message. Traumas can be very old, can have many years, and sometimes when the traumas are long time, like 30 years, 40 years, patients don't recall about the trauma because sometimes, times make them forget. Very good. And
Also follow-up.
follow-up.
Patient has to be followed up.
Regarding the OCT, I didn't ask about this OCT.
It shows the left eye shows superior and inferior nerve fiber layer thinning, which is suggestive of early glaucomatous changes in this eye.
Yes, there is two signs important to talk about glaucoma in this case. One, the difference between the pressure. Right eye has 16, the other one has 21. 21, you will say, well, but it's not very high. Yeah, but there is a difference between the eyes, more than 4 millimeters of mercury. Remember that every asymmetry in the eyes should be observed carefully. And you also had, as she said, very good, there is a difference between the OCTs. Good. Something else you want to add? Oh, it's okay.
The gonio, if you would want to comment on the gonio.
Well, the gonio I think is easy.
Yeah.
All right? Because I make it in purpose. Right? I was thinking about the air residents of the first year. Here you can see clearly the angular recession. If you compare with this one, that is darker, the angle looks good. But in here, it's very clearly seen, that line there, right? Okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. This was the second case? Case 1, okay. Case 2, who wanna talk about the case 2? Who is the brave that wanna discuss about this case? One volunteer, or I choose the volunteer? Remember this one? It seems that this one probably was a little bit harder. That's why no one wants to talk about it, right? Let's go first to the questions. I'm asking what is the physiopathology of the central retinal vein occlusion in this particular patient, which has, that's it, high intraocular pressure, not only cause glaucoma, but against the neuroretinal ring, compress the blood vessels and can cause a central retinal vein occlusion, central retinal blood vessels occlusion, artery or vein. That's the physiopathology, simple, high intraocular pressure. We sometimes don't remember. We think that we have to reduce the pressure because of the progression of glaucoma, and we forget that in risk factor patients, high intraocular pressure can produce central retinal vein occlusion. Regarding the second question, that was even easier, I guess. When we look at the OCT, we look the colors. Green, good. Red, bad, evil. Yellow, borderline. What does it mean, the white one? Out, but on the top level. Remember that red will be lower, white is top. Why is on the top in this case? Hey, because we have an edema, secondary edema, clearly seen here. So you can imagine that that edema extend, and that's why it's over the limit. Yes? That is a good question, because also white color could be in younger patients or in any cause of thickness of the nerve fiber layer over the limit. So it can also be an artifact. That is something we have to keep in mind. Edema of the papilledema can cause bilateral white colors and over limits in all these areas. So the important thing about the white color could be an artifact. It can be seen in children. It can be seen in any pathology of the retina and optic nerve that increase the thickness. All right? The third case. Diagnosis. What? Eh? Steroid response. Simple. Very common in all pathologies or cases in which the patient has been exposed to long-term use of steroids. And you can imagine that after a corneal graft, and we have a lot of these cases here, patients are going to be under steroids. It's true that in corneal transplant can be another mechanism. So whoever said that it's steroid response is fine. Also remember that in corneal transplants, it could be a narrow angle too, due to the flattening of the cornea. And what is this? How many of you say an artifact? Okay. That could be related to blinking. The reason why I'm putting a lot of these problems with OCT is because this is very common. So these are OCTs that are not reliable. If you see here, they are very low. So don't say this can be the red cheese syndrome. You know, like you see a sector that is in red and you say this can be a glaucoma. Well, if you cannot compare and the values are not good, it's not useful. That is important to keep in mind. Tests should help that sometimes can be very confusing. Okay, this one. Where is Reem? She left. I wanted to ask. She asked me about the axial length. How many of you, can we calculate the axial length already in this patient? You can guess. Yes, but can you have a good guess? Have you heard that every 3 myopic diopters is 1 millimeter of enlargement? Every 3 diopters of hyperopia is 1 millimeter less from the metropic side, right? More or less. So as you well say, it's a guessing, but you can say if a patient has 15 diopters of hyperopia, it should have at least something like 5 millimeters less, so around 20 or less millimeters of axial length. It's more reliable in myopic shift than in hyperopia, but you can get the idea that this is an anophthalmic eye, right? Plus, you have all the folds in the macula, and you have a very crowded anterior segment. And as you asked me if it was phakic or pseudophakic, she was phakic that time, now it's pseudophakic. That was my option of treatment because she was already on medication, didn't respond, she has an iridotomy, and I did a lensectomy. No, without, and I didn't have any choroidal effusion. Yeah, I took the risk. I called retina, it was with me, but we didn't do anything else. But it was the highest power lens I ever implanted. 52 diopters. 52, they, in the back. And single. I didn't do a piggyback. It was a single 52 diopter lens done for this lady. Special order, and I implanted folded, the first eye. In the second eye, it breaks inside. So I have to remove half of it and implant the spare one that was 48 diopters. The difference between the eyes right now in refraction is very little, even if one eye has 52 and the other eye has 48, and the glaucoma is well controlled with only one drop. But it's a risky situation. Anophthalmic is a risky situation. So anyone that say PI, medical treatment, or lensectomy, it's not easy manage. Did you write with the scleral windows? Good. And the last case. Diagnosis? Yes. Pseudoexfoliation, yes. And how you will treat this case? First option, medical, right? But the patient is already in 3 meds. Good. SLT is a good option. It will be also a good option. Adding more medication could be also a good option. So all options are open in this particular case. All right? Any question? Clear? Thank you. You missed. No, I have the cases for you. You found it. Yes. Okay.